We got to talk about what's happening with the economy. Now, I really didn't want to talk about this tonight, but it affects all of us and we need to talk about it. Yes, it is official. We have entered a recession. Now, I know that some people don't want to use the R word. That includes President Biden and other members of Congress as well. But the writing is on the wall and they can no longer deny this. We have to call it what it is. Now, I want to start off with something that Ryan Knight said that I want you to think about. Ryan is always dropping truth bombs. Ryan said, under U.S. capitalism, we've had 14 recessions since 1929, which is an average of one recession every 7 years. These boom-bust cycles enable the ruling class to extract as much wealth as possible, while any gains in the working class makes during a boom are erased after the bust hits. Everybody, please take this in. This is Ryan, and he's spot on. Under U.S. capitalism, we've had 14 recessions since 1929. Oh, look, someone else just liked it, which is an average. Oh, more people are liking it. An average of one recession every 7 years. These boom bust cycles enable the ruling class to extract as much wealth as possible, while any gains the working class makes during a boom are erased after the bust hits. Ladies and gentlemen, this is exactly why it is very difficult for people to get out of poverty. This is exactly why it's really difficult for someone who's a part of the working class to get out of the working class, to move up. If this has been happening every 7 years since 1929, what does that tell you about capitalism? What does that tell you about an economy where this is not stable? This is not. How can you plan for your future financially if every 7 years we are entering a recession? This is something I want us to really think about. Because if what Ryan is saying is true, and I think it is if we do the math, we're in for a lot of trouble because it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. It'll be fine for people who are rich. It'll be fine for people who are wealthy. But I'm sitting here asking myself, here it is 2022, and I'm like, how are we back in a recession again? Why am I having to go through multiple recessions in my adult lifetime? Let's think about it. How we're all affected. And let's get into this story. Now, Joe Biden did not want to say the R word. I want you to listen to his speech here. Listen to this clip.
I want to say two things about the GDP report we received this morning. First, it's important to start with what we know before this morning's report. Our job market remains historically strong. Our economy created more than 9 million jobs since I came to office, in no small part because of the people on this stage. Our economy created more than 1 million jobs in the second quarter, the same period as today's GDP report covers. And our unemployment rate is 3.6%, near a record historic low. Secondly, households and businesses, the engines of our economy, continue to move forward. Now, there's no doubt we expect growth to be slower than last year and for the rapid clip we had. But that's consistent with the transition to a stable, steady growth and lower inflation. There's going to be a lot of chatter today on Wall Street and among pundits about whether we are in a recession. But if you look at our job market, consumer spending, business investment, we see signs of economic progress in the second quarter as well. And yesterday's Fed chairman, the Fed chairman Powell said made it clear that he doesn't think the U.S. economy is currently in a recession. He said, quote, "There are too many areas of economic where the economy is performing too well." He pointed to the labor market as an example.
Okay, let's talk about this for a second. There was something he said here that I want to address. Again, like I said, he won't say the R word. By the way, this happened last time too. I remember, I think we were going into '08. It might have been right before we were going into '08. They didn't want to use the R word either. But then eventually got to the point where they had no choice but to admit it. But let's hear this again.
I want to say two things about the GDP report we received this morning. First, it's important to start with what we know before this morning's report. Our job market remains historically strong.
See what he's doing here? He's going to try to tell you the positives first so that the results from that report don't look so damning. That's what he's doing. But are these really positives?
Economy created more than 9 million jobs since I came to office, in no small part because the people on this stage.
The economy created over 9 million jobs. But notice they never tell you what the jobs were. I see a lot of like now hiring signs, and I saw them last year too, but they were mainly for like minimum wage jobs. They were at places like Dunkin' Donuts, Starbucks, Chipotle. Actually, Chipotle pays a little bit more, but they're short staffed too. Anyway, a lot of them were more so for those kind of jobs from what I've seen. But he never said what the jobs were. He never told you if these were contract positions, temp positions, full-time, part-time. They never go into that. And even if you create a temporary position, that still counts as a job that's created. Some of those roles are only 3 months, 6 months long, not guaranteed steady employment. So that's a question I think people need to ask. What were the jobs that were created? And what were the requirements to actually get those jobs? Just something to think about. I do love Chipotle. He said that, Mr. X. I do love Chipotle. I really do. I'm not too happy with the one in Maine right now, the one up there, but because of what they did to the employees. But I do love Chipotle food. But yeah, I don't know. What are the jobs that were created?
Our economy created more than 1 million jobs in the second quarter, the same period as today's GDP report covers. And our unemployment rate is 3.6%, near a record historic low.
The unemployment rate is 3.6%, near a historic record low, but he leaves out the fact that he kicked people off of unemployment in September. You see, if you're not really doing your research or you're not watching independent media, you may not know that. You just hear these numbers that he's spitting off. You're like, oh, wait, yeah, that sounds great. That's wonderful. Yeah, of course, your unemployment rate is going to be at historic lows. When you kick so many people off of unemployment, you force them to get off of it. I want to remind you that the unemployment rate does not include people who are unemployed but live with their parents. So if you are an adult, and like some of us, we were this boomerang thing. So like we graduated from college, we had to move back in with our parents for like a year or so, save up money so we can get on our feet. I had to do that. So what I would add to this, because I think people have a misunderstanding about the unemployment rate. The unemployment rate does not include everybody who doesn't have a job. If you live with your parents and you are an adult and you are unemployed, you're not counted in that rate. That's important. I think people need to realize that it doesn't count everybody.
Secondly, households and businesses, the engines of our economy, continue to move forward. Now, there's no doubt we expect growth to be slower than last year.
Households continue to move forward. How do we move forward? I can tell you here in Boston, they're kicking people out. What are you talking about? We have tent communities popping up. You guys saw me when me and Rome did Tour for the Poor. There's a mini Skid Row in Boston now. What are the households that move? Which households move forward? Because I haven't seen this happening. Interesting.
and the rapid clip we had. But that's consistent with the transition to a stable, steady growth and lower inflation. There's going to be a lot of chatter today on Wall Street and among pundits about whether we are in a recession. But if you look at our job market, consumer spending, business investment, we see signs of economic progress in the second quarter as well.
Let's talk about consumer spending. If the prices of all the goods have increased, that includes groceries, that includes, I don't know, just necessary essential items that you may need, like toilet paper, things like that. If the prices of everything has increased, of course the spending is going to be higher. That doesn't necessarily mean that people have more money to go out and spend. Most people I've talked to are trying to pinch and save where they can because grocery prices are ridiculous and because of the gas prices. So to me, like, this is just something he's just rattling up. Like this don't really, where are the graphs? Where's the data? Like, you're just saying numbers to me. I want to see charts there's no, come on.
And yesterday's Fed chairman, the Fed chairman Powell made it clear that he doesn't think the U.S. economy is currently in a recession. He said, quote, there are too many areas of where the economy is performing too well.
Who is the economy performing well for? See, this is the piece that they leave out. Is the economy doing well for people who are poor? No. People who are working class? No. I'd even argue people who are middle class. The economy's not doing that well, bud. If you're making $7.25 an hour, federal minimum wage, the economy is not doing well for you right now. This is the class divide. Joe Biden's talking about people who are like him, people in like that class bracket. Those people are doing well. CEOs are doing great. They've doubled their wealth. This is one of those things that makes me just want to like pull my hair out, because it's like, you're obviously not talking to the working class. You're not talking to people who are poor. You're not talking to those groups of people, because they will tell you they're not doing well. Go look at Jordan Sheraton's footage on Status Coup, and you tell me if people in this country are doing well right now. Go look at it. The most recent footage where he's on the road and he's going to different people and they're showing him the bad conditions that they are living in their own freaking apartments right now. People living with black mold, people living in tents because they got kicked out of their housing complex. Go look at that and tell me if people are doing okay economically. They never talk about it.
Pointed to the labor market as an example.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I can't right now. Let's get into some of those numbers. Let's get right into it. U.S. economy contracts for second straight quarter. GDP falls at 0.9% pace in quarter two. So here we go. U.S. economic activity contracted for the second consecutive quarter in quarter two. Data from the Commerce Department showed Thursday. The Bureau of Economic Analysts' advanced estimate of quarter two U.S. gross domestic product, which is GDP, showed a 0.9% annualized decrease in economic growth for the 3-month period ended June 30th. Economists surveyed by Bloomberg expected data to show U.S. economy grew at an annualized pace of 0.4% last quarter. The decline in GDP comes after U.S. economic activity unexpectedly fell 1.6 during the first quarter. How was this unexpected? How was that unexpected considering like we entered inflation? I don't think that was unexpected. The first negative reading since the second quarter of 2020. 2 straight negative GDP prints meet the unofficial definition of a recession. I'm going to say this again. 2 straight negative GDP prints meets the unofficial definition of a recession. We are in a recession. Just based off the definition alone. Let's go back in. The National Bureau of Economic Research, however, says a recession is a significant decline in economic activity that is spread across the economy and lasts more than a few months. The government's preliminary reading on second quarter GDP, the broadest measure of economic activity, comes one day after Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell told reporters at a press conference that he did not believe the economy is in a recession. Again, this is just his belief. And I told you guys before, they don't like to use the R word. They don't want people to panic. Right now, they really want to try to keep people as calm as possible, especially considering a lot of people are angry because of inflation. A lot of people are angry because of how the Biden administration has been handling this economy. They're trying to keep people as calm as possible. The last thing they want is for people to lose their shit and say, that's it, let's hit the streets. Let's go in. In the meantime, they're ramping up the police state, by the way, to prepare for this. The Bureau of Economic Analysis attributed the decline to GDP to broad-based decreases across private inventory investment, residential and non-residential investment, and federal, state, and local government spending. Here we go. So here's the U.S. GDP contracts for the second consecutive quarter in 2022. Let's go down here. Here are the years. So we start from 1947. We go all the way over to 2020. And you can see a large difference here. You see that? A decrease in retail trade, primarily across general merchandise stores and motor vehicle dealers, dragged down inventory investment. I mean, nobody has money to buy a car right now. No one I know of. While the fall in residential investment was weighed down by factors including brokers, commissions, the report said. Capital Economics senior U.S. economist Andrew Hunter indicated in a note that while the GDP reading was disappointing, it did not necessarily indicate that the economy is in a recession. Okay, man. Okay, whatever. You guys believe this? The decline was partly due to a huge drag from inventories, while most other coincident indicators, particularly employment, show continued expansion. That said, the details show that higher rates and surging inflation are weighing on underlying demand, and we expect only a muted rebound in economic growth over the second half of the year. Guys, remember this, what they're expecting. They're expecting a rebound. Second half of the year. Let's hold them to this, okay? Personal consumption expenditures, or consumer spending, which comprises roughly 2/3 of domestic activity, rose at a pace just 1%, a slowdown from the prior quarter. Bloomberg consensus data showed economists expected 1.2% increase in consumption. So the deceleration came as inflation surged at the fastest annual rate since 1981. See? Weighing on Americans' ability to afford the cost of gas, food, and shelter. And this goes back to what I was saying before. They are literally kicking people out of their homes. I've seen it. If they're not getting kicked out because they can't afford to pay their rent, they're getting kicked out because of gentrification. They're getting kicked out because you have mayors of these cities that are selling these apartment buildings. They're supposed to be low income apartment buildings, and they're selling those buildings to investors and developers, and they're booting those people out because they just want to make money. That's what it's really about. This is a problem. Growth was also curbed by a 2% point drag from inventories as supply chain imbalances lingered. This was a big drag in the first quarter too, but market forecasts for both quarters seem not to have appreciated the scale of the hit. Now, Elsewhere in the report, residential investment plunged 14% as skyrocketing mortgage rates slowed home purchases. When was the last time I remember this happening? You remember this? These skyrocketing mortgage rates, which is slowing home purchases. People are not buying homes. I mean, the rates keep going up. Look, I'll go ahead and tell you, I get this report about once a month. Sometimes I look at it, sometimes I don't. I knew I was going into this story tonight, so I did look at it. Please tell me why the houses in my neighborhood are now, some of them, which you got to keep in mind, I have a small house. It's a cape. Well, I shouldn't say it like that. My husband doesn't like when I say it's small. But it's a cape. For those who don't know what capes are, it's a Cape Cod house. One of the things that I've noticed, and I looked at this report recently, why are the houses in our neighborhood now they're selling them for $700,000? That's insane. The same style house that I have, a Cape Cod home. Do you guys know what a cape Let me look, hold on. Let's come out of here. I'm going to show you what a cape looks like. So you can see, because I know if you don't live here, you might be like, what is a Cape Cod home? Doobie-doobie-doo. All right, that's a good picture. They're a different style because they're short in the front and longer in the back. Actually, they're kind of like a mullet, to be honest with you. You think about it. But this is a cape. That's what they call them. We call them capes here. They're Cape Cod homes. That's what that style is, right? So it's short in the front, but if you go around the back of the house, it's actually larger in the back. But that's what they look like. Why are these style homes in my neighborhood, why are they selling these now starting at $700,000? That is insane. That is absolutely insane, you guys. No freaking way. People can't afford that here. Whether you're a professional or not, most professionals I know cannot afford a $700,000 home. This is where we're at now. And this reminds me so much, if we're going back to 08, 2010, like, this is insane. People cannot buy these homes. So what's happening? The houses are just sitting there on the market. Or you have investors come in and they buy up all these houses and then they try to make a profit off of it, or they rent them out. But if you're looking for a single family home here in Eastern Massachusetts, in the Boston area, forget it. And that's with 2 incomes. Right now, forget it. It's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. What's that, Gorgon? Yeah, that would easily be 1.5 million here in Northern California. Isn't that crazy? No one, like, literally, like, you really have to be, maybe some of the faculty, like some of the faculty I worked with, like at MIT, they could probably afford it. But other than that, nah, man. And they wonder why people are leaving these cities. It's terrible. Jeez. So we're back here again. And this is why I'm just like, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear that, them making these excuses and not wanting to use the R word. Just call it what it is. Now, they don't want to use that word with us, but they don't have a problem using that word in reference to Japan. Now, listen to this. Japan GDP data shows its economy has sunk into a recession. So why is it okay to mention that about Japan, that their GDP data says it's now in a recession, but when it comes to us having similar GDP data, is not a recession? Listen to this. You got to call them out on this, you guys. Listen to this. I'm not going to play. It's 1 minute and 19 seconds.
Japan is headed for its deepest economic slump since World War II. The world's third largest economy shrank 2.2% on the year between January and March. That's actually better than the 3.4% contraction in a preliminary reading. But it still confirms that Japan has sunk into recession, defined as 2 straight quarters of contraction. And that was even before lockdowns were imposed in April, meaning future GDP numbers are certain to be worse. Recent data, including exports, factory output and employment, all suggest the country faces its worst post-war slump. Policymakers are moving to respond. Monday saw Parliament begin debating a second supplementary budget. That is part of a fresh $1.1 trillion stimulus package that includes injecting capital into struggling firms. Meanwhile, the Bank of Japan will look at further steps in its rate review next week. But a surprise calm on markets does allow some breathing room. On Monday, Japanese stocks climbed to a 3.5-month high. That came after last week's surprise gain in US employment numbers, which fueled hopes of a swift global recovery.
So you see that? They can say that for Japan, but they can't say that for us. That's suspect. Again, I'm telling you, they're trying to keep people calm. They don't want people to get riled up because they know what will happen. Because people are already angry. Now they're going to be even more angry. So there was a poll that was done at RBN. CJ probably created this. He usually does polls. But we have this poll over RBN, and it says, has your personal economic situation gotten better or worse since Joe Biden has taken office? So you have to actually select something to get the results here. So I'm going to say it's worse because that's the reality. Look at this. 6.8% said better. 55.2% said worse. 19.2% said no change. 18.8% said a lot worse. The fact that how many people? 1,331 votes. That's pretty good. The fact that only 6.8% can say that it got better, what does that tell you about that 6.8%? They're probably not of the working class. Probably not. And I'm not even working class, but my situation still got worse. Economically, financially, it's worse. That's terrible. So this is very telling. And I don't know what people put in the, this one says no change. So Holy Hami says no change. Technically, I've gained a raise, but it's offset by inflation. Also had car stuff that all piled up. But because I still live with my parents who make decent money, it didn't threaten my livelihood despite missing a few days of work. I'm in a very lucky position. So even for people that said no change, that's still not good. And of course, a lot worse isn't good either. So I think a very telling situation that we are in. And I just want everybody to get prepared because I've heard this before. They don't want to use the word, but we're here. I'm going to go to some of the comments here. Infrared says Cape homes are rising. Yes. This is crazy, right? I told my parents about that. Are they like, are they insane? JB Font says, I say depression, but whatevs. There you go. I haven't watched Richard Wolff's economic report yet for this week, but I'm going to check that out too and see what he says about all of this. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. Companies try to only give contract work instead of full time to avoid giving benefits. Can I get a burrito with a large fry? You got any alcohol? Oh boy. Yeah, no, it's true. I've seen, like I said, like there are a lot of job postings, but a lot of them are like contract temp positions. Some of them are sneaky too, by the way. Like they'll tell you it's a contract position and then you interview for the position and then you find out it's actually temp, it's not contract. Or they'll say that it's temp to perm and then you interview with the hiring manager and you find out it's not temp to perm, it's just temp. Something to note. A kid said, Sabby, please consider all items at the dollar store are now $1.25. Isn't that crazy? The $1 store is called the $1 store because everything, like the Dollar Tree, it's supposed to be $1. Now it's $1.25. It's been $1 all of these years. Now it's 125. Now that may not mean much to a lot of people, but to some people, that extra 25 cents actually does matter. She's Black said most people are feeling the recession, so Joe is not going to be able to sell his propaganda. Most people are not falling for it anymore because they are living it. That's right. This is true. Lewis said another quarter of record profits for energy and defense contractors. AJF, thank you for the super chat. People, politicians never tell you what type of jobs are created. You notice that, you guys? What are these jobs? These jobs at McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts? Where are the jobs? Thank you for the super chat, a kid. Sabby, yes, need to do what we can. Hashtag general strike. We started talking about this last year. Thank you for the super chat, Andrew. My parents bought our home for $350K in 2001. Now there is a home on our block selling for $1.5 million, and it's smaller than our house. Isn't this crazy? How did we get here? And thank you for this super chat as well, Andrew. The 1.5 million house looks like the house you just showed. Cape style. Wow.